Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town. All right, that was fun, Tyler. That was a good night. Every night on the Richest Men in Town is an amazing experience. Tonight, we're hanging out with a friend of yours, San Diego common denominator, with Lester Gray came on the podcast. He's dropping some things. What are you taking away? What's on your notepad there?
Well, one of the first things I want to say to all of our listeners is, would you have bet money that we would have had two Lesters on our show? Probably not, right? So here we spent some time with Lester Gray. I mean, honestly, Mike, I loved our time with Lester. What I liked, he talks about some real difficult things that he's gone through and that have been transformational for him, right? And I think, we hear this a lot from our guests, but there is this moment where those difficult things can go one direction or the other, right? And Lester talks about what helped him choose certain directions. And I thought it was powerful. The idea of the influence of people, right? Both positive and negative, and how that ended up shaping who he is today.
Yeah, that positive, he shares a couple of low spots and different kinds of lows in different seasons of his life. And I think we can all relate to that. But what gets him out of that is some tenacity, right? And some grit and some sacred experiences. But what is the catalyst to get out is someone believing in him.
Yeah.
Right? A couple of times there's somebody that just expresses some non-judgment, no blame, and hey, I want you to know I believe in you. And that is all he needs. Right. I mean, he's a remarkable man, right? He's a remarkable man. It's almost like we need a disclaimer down at the bottom, results not typical, right? There is nothing typical about Lester and Lester's story. But at the same time, there's a power for us and an ability for us to listen to this and see ourselves.
Yeah.
And connect. Now, the situations are going to be rather extreme.
Yeah. But
we can still see ourselves. And we can still hear Dave Voigtlander, right? My setback set up my comeback, right? We can still feel kind of echoes of guests in the past. So this is RMIT, true, the heart of what we're about in the conversation, the power that these conversations have for us to shape our lives. But man, Lester's doing it. Lester's doing it right. And he's coming from a place where he didn't always do it right.
Yeah. I appreciate you pointing out that idea of belief, right? People believing in Lester at those difficult points. I think Lester kind of teaches that lesson of the importance of having someone believe in you and the importance of being the person that believes in someone, right? I love that. I appreciate you pointing that out. That it was a fun night tonight, right? I love Lester's got a ton of energy, right? And he's go. He's going to get up at 4 a.m. to go work out, right? And we kept him up late, but yeah, there's a lot of things to be learned. And I'm grateful for those lessons. It really made me think about, what am I focusing on and what's most important? And Lester kind of dives into that.
Yeah. And I love the intentionality that he attacks it. He literally takes out a pad of paper and is like, I'm going to work a solution to this.
Yeah.
And I think if we're going through something, I just want to extend that invitation. If people are going through something, it might be good every once in a while to maybe just get in a car, go for a drive, take out a piece of paper and say, all right, with heaven's help, how can I work a solution here? How can I work some things out? He actually, at one point, I don't know if you caught this, but he talks about that process he redesigns himself
Yeah.
from scratch.
I love that. Yeah.
Almost from ashes.
Yeah. Well, and that it's interesting because I think that sort of when he talked about that, it definitely made me think of our friend Will that says, I am what I am right now. Right. But we can change, and we can deconstruct and reconstruct, and Lester definitely dives into that. It was fun, Mike. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah. I have this dream of gathering people together, friends of the program, guests of the program, and just dividing the room and throwing in the middle of the conversation the topic of life balance.
Yeah.
And just see what kind of discussion comes from that, right? Because I think there's a couple of schools of thought, and Lester lends some thoughts as he sees things, right?
Absolutely. It definitely made me rethink some of my positions, but I loved it, man. He was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, if our listeners are anything like us, they're gonna be taking some notes on this one.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm grateful for Lester. And this puts me in a weird spot right here. I'm expressing gratitude for somebody I've not personally met, and that's the miracle of this project. And to Lester and his family, to Jane.
Yeah.
Come on, right? Come on, Jane. 4 days. Hey, anyway, we'll keep our powder dry. Our listeners are gonna love that story. But to Lester's boys, I want to back him. I want to back him up and let his boys know that they do have a remarkable father.
Yeah.
And 'tis the season, right? We're coming up on Father's Day. This will drop the day after Father's Day. To all the dads out there, thank you for the way they show up in the lives of their kids. We're not perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Not perfect, but we're striving.
That's it.
And hopefully we're letting our kids in on the lessons that this life has to teach us, because, man, what a wonderful life, right? Right, Tyler Gould?
It's a wonderful life, man.
In the end, it's all wonderful. And we raise our glass. We're grateful for Lester Gray coming in, joining the program. And we hope our listeners enjoy their time with Lester Gray on this episode of The Richest Men in Town.
Check this out, Mike. The other day, I got this email, okay, from ancestry.com. Do you know this? Ancestry.com?
I do get emails from ancestry.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got this email from ancestry.com, and it said, hey, click on this link and find out which relative you look like. So I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I show some old pictures of like my great grandfather, or whatever. So I click on it, and it's like, take a selfie and we'll do this. So
this is the thing that you can do.
Yeah, it was like ancestry.com. So I was like, this is awesome. So I take a selfie.
This is total AI. This is AI, right?
Yeah. I take the selfie, and it's like, you look exactly like your 85-year-old grandmother, Dita.
Hey, sometimes the I in AI isn't so intelligent. You know what I mean?
And maybe it's for insulting. I don't know. Like it was a bit hard to take.
I'm actually thinking of some maybe some Jim Rome, Colin Montgomery references.
Yes, exactly. I was
like, if Colin Montgomery had blank, he would look like my aunt.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And look, my grandmother, love her to death. She's no longer with us. She had a real tight kind of red perm going on. And so I was thinking, like, I was telling someone else this story the other day, and they were like, do you look like your grandma? And I said, here's the sad thing. If I had a tight red perm, I probably look exactly like her. So anyway, man, look.
Hey,
yeah.
And that's when you hit the unsubscribe button on the email.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? Screw ancestors. And it's just get rid of them. So no, but it hurt my pride, and then I reminded myself that, hey, I'm like half as old as my grandma was at that picture. I don't know what to think about any of this.
Maybe it's like a nod to your good skin. Right?
It's a nod to something, man. I mean,
did you have your hair grown out a little bit, maybe, or something, or maybe it's the glasses? I don't know.
Honestly, when I took that selfie, I was posing hard. I was trying to look my best, man. And
you were hoping it'd be some distinguished general or something.
I thought like, like a Sean Connery type of figure. But no, it was my 85-year-old grandma. So there you go.
Maybe that's just grandma getting in the mix, just reminding you that she's around.
Yeah, she's still part of the mix.
Yeah, she's in there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited about tonight. We got Lester Gray joining the show tonight. And
I never thought I'd say this, but this is our second Lester.
I actually had the same exact thought. And, it's exciting though. Lester, you're going to like Lester, Mike. I think you're really going to enjoy him. He's got some energy. He's a builder. And I think we're going to get some nuggets tonight.
So like builder by trade or like builder of people? Talk to me about the
like Lester's a guy that is really he's a builder of people for sure.
Okay.
And he's he's built businesses and kind of gone down that road, but Lester is really invested in people. That's one of the things I really love about Lester is that if you know Lester, he's going to be all about you, right? He's going to.
Well, hey, I actually am becoming a big fan of people that are all about me. So I'm going to hit the admit button, and I'm going to get to know Lester Gray.
Open the door. Let's do it.
Let's do this. And hey, just so you know, we got a little streak going here. I think we're like almost 140 episodes of either you or me introducing people and it being a positive experience. So hopefully Lester doesn't feel the pressure of the situation that he's entering where.
Hey, I can now hear you. I apologize. I just got it.
Lester, what's going on, man?
What's up, man?
You are in Chicago?
Yeah.
I
moved to Chicago in 2018.
Oh my goodness. I was thinking you were in Utah.
Yeah.
So you were in Utah, you moved to Chicago.
Yeah.
Wow. This whole time I'm thinking, man, Lester's a trooper. It's an hour difference. And Lester, you're like a super trooper, right? So
I guess. Yeah. Well, yesterday I was when I got the invite, I was like, what excuse can I make?
Well,
you didn't let me. You're like, hey, we set this up for you.
Yes.
we want to talk to you.
Well,
I was like, hey, I have a referral for you. You're like,
I know you threw that at me, and I thought, I'll take your referral, but we want you.
Yeah.
So, well, Lester, I want to introduce you to my friend Mike. Mike, this is Lester, and I'm sure we'll get to know each other a little bit better here. But Mike,
hey, Lester, welcome to the richest man in town. I apologize because I am a Cubs fan. I just went and visited my daughter's mission in Philly, and I got me a Phillies hat. And had I known I was talking to somebody in Chicago, I'd be representing a little bit better.
Well, it would be funny if I liked the White Sox and you're wearing the Cubs. So
that would be funny.
Who likes the White Sox? Anyways, come on now.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't have a favorite baseball team. I grew up in Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
So we actually we just got back from Tampa Bay. We went to a Rays game, so that was fun. They have the best record in the league. So
yeah,
they're rolling. They are rolling right now.
Yeah,
first team to 50 wins. That's something right there.
Almost. I think they're 40. I think they're at 46 and 20 now.
Are they? Okay. So they're getting there. They're almost there. You know?
Wait, for what it's worth, we go to a Phillies game and we get treated to a walk-off. And then the next night, Tyler, they walked off your boys back-to-back walk-offs.
I think that was that a walk-off where we hit the batter and we walked them in on that was a gem. So
yeah, but I mean, then I think you smoked them, so it worked out.
Yeah. It's all.
So how we like in Chicago, Lester?
So it's June and oh my goodness, it was super cold today.
Was it?
So we just got done with my son's baseball game and it was like super cold. We got to get our winter coats out in June.
Wow.
Crazy.
That is crazy.
I did not move here for the weather.
Yeah. I don't think many people do. I've been to Chicago a couple times down at the Navy Pier during winter for some trade show stuff.
Oof.
Brutal.
You felt it.
Felt it. And then I've been there in the summertime Brutal.
Oh, that's 3
Yes.
showers. I've been there in August. That's a 3 shower day.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my!
I moved here in 2018, and that year there was a polar vortex that hit.
Oh my gosh.
That sounds fun.
And I like convinced my wife to move out here, and because I still like I came out here to test the market to see if I wanted to move here. And then I convinced my wife to move out here. She got out here in September, and the polar vortex hit end of December. So she got here, and then it was like negative 50 degrees. She's like, can we go back to San Diego?
Oh, that's wild, man.
Man, Tyler, what is going on? We talked to a couple people that have actually mustered up the courage to leave San Diego.
Oh,
yeah.
Worst decision of my life to move away from Tyler.
Well, we certainly miss having the Gray family in San Diego. That's for sure, man.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about storms, man. I was down in San Diego one time. It hit 68 and people lost their minds, right?
Yeah.
Go to the attic, get the winter stuff, storm of the century.
Don't leave the house, man. Just hunker down. You know?
It's a long winter of a couple hours.
We want to end up back in San Diego.
Do you?
Yeah, eventually. Want to come back.
Man. That would be awesome. How now?
So Lester, break it down for me. What's family look like?
Yeah.
5 boys.
Okay.
You got a basketball team.
You're having
I got a
good
basketball
time.
team. Yeah.
What are
5
the ages?
boys. So the ages are, we have an 11-year-old all the way down to 11 months.
Wow. 11 months. I didn't realize your youngest was so young.
Yeah. So we have 11-year-old, we have an 8-year-old, we have a 6-year-old, we have a 4-year-old, and we have an 11-month-old.
Well, I hate to run it through, but you're going to listen to this for posterity's sake. They're probably going to want their names.
Yeah.
Let's drop their names on it.
Yeah, so they're all M's. It's M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. So we have the top one. We have Marshall,
Okay.
Michael, Maxwell, Maverick, and McGregor. And McGregor's middle name's pretty cool. It's on my shirt.
Is it really? Under Armour. Oh no, Sean. Okay.
Under Armour. Yeah. McGregor Under Armour gray. Let's go.
Oh man. So
Under Armour.
Okay, so hold on. So was the baseball game for your 11-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's watchable baseball, right? If you get into that T-ball business, that's just stuff you got to survive.
Yeah, so he's pretty good at baseball. Their team right now they're playing in 2 different leagues, and in the league they're playing in today, they're undefeated. And they only won, I think it was like 12-3. This was the first game they didn't win by the mercy rule.
Oh really?
Oh, you know what's cool? Did you guys have kids that played baseball? Did your son Tyler? Your oldest, the one that just got back from a mission?
He didn't play. He played soccer. He played baseball when he was really young, but not beyond that.
Lester's going right to the weak spot, right? Right to the. I don't have a lot of regrets, but the fact that my boy didn't play baseball breaks my heart. Breaks my heart.
Barely call yourselves American. We can barely call ourselves American.
Well, hey, but Tyler, we had that T-ball thing that it was rough.
It was rough,
right? Coached by committee kind of thing, and like we barely. It was brutal.
Yeah.
That soured us.
I'm a funny father when it comes to that one. So we just got back from a tournament. It was the Field of Dreams tournament.
Oh, get out. At the Field of Dreams?
You've seen that movie, right?
Oh, it's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Are you at the field?
Yeah, so no, you don't get to play on the field unless you make the championship. And we got into the championship, and it was so cool. Like it was literally on the field that they did the movie on.
Whoa, what?
Whoa. Yeah, it was so cool. And
your boy played on the Field of Dreams field.
Yeah. Oh man, and he got a freaking nice hit on it too. He did.
Oh, nice.
We didn't win it. We lost I think it was 11-8, something like that. It was a close game. But it was fun, just the experience to play on that field. They had these old guys walking around in like the Legends uniform. It would have been way cooler if the corn was actually grown. It's not corn season.
Okay.
But it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's unbelievable. top 5 favorite movie of
because,
all time.
Yeah, you just ruined us because we want to end the episode and just go stream that movie right now.
Yeah,
Absolutely, man.
I thought you were going to say we just want to walk into the corn right now.
That's 100%. My daughter actually did a road trip back east, my oldest, and they stopped at the Field of Dreams field and took pictures out on, all that kind of good stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
They still have the house there. They have the barns there. And now they're going to turn it into something like they're going to do tournaments every single year there.
When does the Major League Baseball game happen? Because they play.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a different field.
Okay.
They built out real close to there.
Right.
In fact, it's I think they have the field. You can see it from that field.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think last year there was a walk-off, right? Or something. I think
Was
Judge
there?
put it in the corn or something, maybe.
No way. That would have been.
Into the corn.
I
Man,
want to
that's
go to
so
that
cool.
game. Now that I went there this year for Marshall, I want to go to the MLB game there.
Oh yeah, how fun would that be?
Oh my goodness.
Unbelievable.
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, Tyler, I don't want to. You can edit this. We can cut this.
Okay.
I don't know how we're feeling about the U.S. Open right now and the PGA and the Live and all that. Are we watching Are we watching the U.S. Open this weekend?
I mean, you're asking like, you want my opinion on it?
Yeah. Where you at?
I'm all about it.
Are you?
I'm all in, man. I'm all in. That whole Live like that, I didn't have any beef with that at all from the very beginning.
Okay, so you're good.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Lester, I don't know if you're a golfer, if you pay attention to that at all, but I don't have a problem with it.
I don't know enough about it. I know that people are talking about the Saudi Arabia, right, funding it.
Yeah.
Although, listen, like obviously, I don't drink alcohol, but you see in my background, like,
yeah,
I love taking pre-workouts.
Yeah.
I'll dry scoop it in front of my company and get real crazy and excited and motivated. And so like, I see that's what they do on the golf course over at Live.
Oh, really?
Everyone freaks out. Yeah. Have you seen one of their,
I haven't seen it.
like someone that's old school golfer, they would not like it. Like, I think they throw a bunch of stuff onto the course after they hit a really nice shot.
Yeah. I'm all about it.
That would be me. I mean,
Yeah, I'm all about it. Look, the Phoenix Open, right? Pre-Live.
That's bucket list.
It's the same thing. It's like the 18th green guy hits it within 2 feet of the stick, and they're throwing bottles and everything else onto the. I'm all about that. Like, let's go.
Unless you're grounds crew.
Yeah.
Someone's got to,
Unless you're grounds crew.
Oh, man, we're so stodgy.
Yeah, that's true. That's funny.
I love it. I'm all about it, man. I don't know, Mike. I have a feeling you disagree with me.
Well, here's the problem, man. If I had a problem with Live before, where am I at now, right? Like, I can't just bury the problem I had with Live before when Live buddies up with one of my favorite organizations, right? I love me some PGA. I thought it was a nice nod to have Live players playing in the majors, and now we're in this new reality. So
what did they do? Merge?
Yeah. So we're struggling with it right now. Right now I'm boycotting, but
But are you boycotting on what grounds? Can I ask, or is this too personal?
Yeah, no. To me, it's I believe that Saudi Arabia is using professional sports to do some image work.
How do you feel about the NBA in China? Are we cool with that?
Hey, listen, I'll boycott with you, Mike.
I'm not watching
sold.
NBA China. I don't know.
There's tons of money flowing.
I think that's the problem. In 2023, you start boycotting things. Pretty soon, you're going to be a monk eating Cheerios, right? Like, I don't.
Yeah,
like, where do you
man.
draw the line?
Yeah. Look, and here's the thing. Like, I'll be like, full disclosure. I like steroids in baseball. Let it go, man. Open it up. Like,
Open it
what
up.
do we hold? What are we stopping these guys for? They're going to find a loophole and do it anyway. Let's make it wide open. I want to see 650-foot bombs.
I was going to say 400, but 600 is better. Let's go.
I want to see 97 home runs in a season.
Okay, how about the sticky stuff? How about the sticky stuff for the pitchers? Yeah.
Sticky, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's go. Throw it in there. You know, you can't hit the spitball and the file. The guy's just out there on the mound in front of you, just filing it. You know,
let's go.
We were all about it when it was happening. Why not bring it back? Right?
I loved it. I thought it was the most exciting time in baseball.
Who didn't like Barry Bonds and McGuire and Sammy going off?
Oh, come on.
And
you remember Barry? I mean, Barry was pitcher in pitcher every at bat. It didn't matter what you were watching. Yeah. When he came to the plate, watching went to the little box, and Barry came up on the screen.
And we all knew from the very beginning, right? Barry's up there looking like, Paul Bunyan with a toothpick in his hand, wearing a hat that's like a size 47. And nobody questioned that. We're like, yeah, that's normal. Let's go. So I'm all about it, man. You open it up.
Hey, hold up on that hat 47, because I'm a 7 3/4 right now. So I just want you to know I've got a class action lawsuit against snapback hats. We're going to,
I thought we saw that. We had a little invention where we did a little extender on it for you. So. All right, we digress.
Four more buttons.
We're way off course here.
Hold on. We didn't start on course. Lester, before you jumped in, we usually have a little conversation, have an opportunity to chat. Tyler tells me that Ancestry.com has this selfie feature. You can take a selfie and then you can throw it up against your ancestral records and they can tell you who you look like.
Yeah. You know what, Lester? I did this because I was like, I've seen some pictures of some of my ancestors. I'm like, they're handsome dudes. Like, I want to see which one of these guys I look like. And it spit out my 85-year-old grandmother. And said, that's who I look like. And so I was hurt. I immediately went into the mirror and looked at my face and thought, really? But I was telling someone this story and they asked me, they said, well, do you look like your grandma? And I said, if I had a tight red perm, I'd look exactly like her, I think. So,
hey, just bring that Mrs. Doubtfire look back, right? You'd be good to go.
Oh man. So it's a motivator. I called the plastic surgery center. Like, let's go.
Hey, Lester, is it summer for your kids?
Yeah.
All right. That is that excite you as a dad, or is that like, oh geez, here we go?
Man, you know what? I get super busy with work, but they just got out of school just a few days ago, and so it's fun. Like we've moved a lot, so it's hard to get a ton of relationships in place, and so now he's finally that like all my kids are getting relationships in place with kids that they have on the baseball teams. And so tomorrow they're getting together, like all my kids are getting together with some of the other kids. And so I'm going to be at work and I'm like, man, I wish I was out there. They're going to be playing baseball at our house. Some of my other kids are going to be at the pool with some of the other families on the baseball team. So, but in fact, we just got back from Tampa Bay too. And oh my goodness, my boys are redheads. And we went to the beach and we put sunscreen on our boys.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Did you dip them in it?
Man, we sprayed them down really, really well.
I don't know about that spray. I don't know. I'm not convinced.
I don't think the spray works. They got blisters.
Oh no.
Blisters.
Well, I think Banana Boat is just mispackaged Pam. Right? I think it's cooking spray.
It is. It's cooking spray.
Sprayed them down. This episode is not brought to you by Banana Boat sunscreen.
The whole crew is. Are they recovered?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, they. So now it's all of us are really just peeling skin.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, we just got back from Tampa. We flew in yesterday.
Okay.
And we got up to leave the airplane. And I looked down at one of my son's seats, and there was just dead skin everywhere over that seat. And they don't really clean those airplanes. They like give you a hand sanitizer, right?
Right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for the next person that has to sit on that seat, because I'm not joking. It was like everywhere dead skin. Wash your seats down when you sit down on an airplane.
Yeah, hopefully the next guy coming in is not wearing like a black wool sweater.
Oh, golly.
Yeah,
seriously.
I'm just glad you referred to it as dead skin and not DNA. That's good.
DNA is everywhere.
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, I tell you what, Lester, we're excited to have you be here with us tonight, and we appreciate you pinch hitting for us. But I will tell you, you've been on our short list for a long time, and I'm just grateful that you're here. So, Mike, Lester was in San Diego for how long were you here in San Diego?
I was 2 years.
2 years in San Diego?
Yeah.
And Marshall was young at the time.
Oh my goodness. He was like, he was just a baby.
Yeah.
Oh, is he 10 years? It was 1 year old.
Yeah. I think he was just barely maybe toddling around a little bit,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, Lester was here for a couple years, and I got to meet him through church, and just love what Lester's all about, and what his family's all about. So,
well, hey, Lester, no pressure, but you were described before you came on the program as a builder of people, and of businesses, right? And so I just love that. I love that description. I actually had somebody retire, coworker of mine retire. We probably worked together 20 years. And when she left, she gave me a framed sign that it's a poem called "Who Builds the Builders?" And she said, "I've had this hanging everywhere I've worked. I'm done working. You've got some building to do. I'm going to pass this to you, and you hang it in your office," right? So when you get described to me as a builder, like I'm all in for a couple hours. Let's hang out with Lester. Let's figure out what growing up in Boise looked like. How did you meet the mother of these boys? Right? Let's just get into it, because in the end, Tyler and I are just trying to get better. Right? Our friends in Kenya listening are just trying to get better. You know, the folks that are tuning in are just like they're in a spot. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. But if Lester's got something to help us be better, man, we're all ears. So appreciate your time.
Who called me a builder?
Tyler Gould.
I appreciate that. That was very kind of you.
I mean it. I love the way that you interact with people. And, you know, one of the things that I appreciate about you, Lester, is that, you know, I can tell you're genuine when you're interacting with people, and that you like that interaction. And that's powerful, right? I think that when people feel that, and they feel a connection, right, it's motivating, right? It puts you in a position where you want to rise up, right, to a different level. So I appreciate that about you. And
but this program is about figuring out how you became that way.
That's it.
So we can kind of reverse engineer so that we can maybe help ourselves live that life and become builders as well. So that's the journey that we've got ahead of us. So
I like it.
Yeah, you ready to jump in?
Yeah. So I yesterday, when you gave me the opportunity to be on this podcast, I was like, man, it sounds fun. And then you said, hey, this is the part that gets weird. It's tomorrow.
Well, hey, we have a mantra around here, Lester, that we actually say to our guests whenever we provide the invitation. We say to our guests, you roll out of bed rich. If you're on this program, this isn't a final you got to cram for, right? This is us having an opportunity to hang out, a couple buds, talking about living a life that we want to live. And maybe we're not there, but Lester, when you woke up this morning, you were somebody worth talking to, right? So I thought it was just nice he shared the questions with you, maybe. Right? Did he share the question? Did he share the questions with you?
It doesn't mean I had a lot of time to look it over, but he did.
Hey, that's
I have the email. I'll say that.
Consider yourself prepared. You're good.
Well, I'll tell you what, Lester.
Right. I wake up prepared.
I think that shot of adrenaline when you hear it's tomorrow, that's worth it, right? It's just a little bit of a let's go.
Yeah, come on. Why not?
But I do appreciate you jumping in.
For real. So yesterday, I think it's very natural for us to find when we have opportunities to get uncomfortable. It's really a lot of times as humans, we look for a way out of that.
Yeah.
We don't want to get out of our comfort zone. And so I was like, I got to figure out a way to get out of this. And then, I felt this voice. There's no joke. Like I really felt this. When I give you an opportunity to tell your story, you need to take those opportunities. And when I felt that voice, I was like, maybe that wasn't God. I'll ask Jane. So I texted you and I said, hey, let me check with Jane first.
You did. That's right.
I said that. And so I checked with Jane. I was like, Jane, so we're probably busy tomorrow, right? Like I just got invited to go do this podcast. Should I do it? And she's like, go do it.
No,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
Good. I knew I liked Jane for a lot of reasons, but
I'm just impressed that similar to my experiences, the voice of God and the voice of my wife line up really well.
They do. I don't even know why I question it.
Right.
Well, I think that, there's something, and let's dive into that. It's maybe a little bit down the road here, because I think that one of the recurring themes that we talk about a lot on this podcast is that the willingness to kind of put ourselves out there and the willingness to accept new challenges, right? And the growth that comes from that. So, but I think that being in a position where we recognize that prompting and we take action on that prompting, that's an acquired skill in my mind.
It is, yeah.
Right. And so I think I'd like to figure out where that skill begins to be developed and when you start feeling confident in that. So let's back up all the way to the beginning and talk for a second. Lester, talk to us about what growing up in Idaho was like, what your family makeup is, siblings, mom and dad, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. So I grew up in the church.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that we had like a super healthy household when it came to our relationships. But I had, there was 5 kids in our family. My parents stayed together, which is super awesome. That was a cool experience for us. I'll tell you, there were times when I didn't want them to stay together, but it was an interesting childhood. My mother was an optimist. My father was a pessimist. I have an older brother and 3 sisters. And I had a pretty crazy childhood. So I played sports. I played football, basketball, baseball, and I did pretty well at those sports. Football, I thought I was going to take that all the way. I had opportunities I was getting recruited by different colleges, and I got into, to be honest with you, that skill set of hearing and understanding the voice of the Lord, understanding the voice of the Holy Ghost. I did not have that as a child, at least. Maybe I could have, but it wasn't something that I was really taught or mentored about.
Right.
Because my household was pretty broken. My father was pretty abusive to my brother and I, physically and emotionally, like verbally. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And physically abusive. So like growing up in that household, I looked outside of our household to connect with a group of people that I could feel like it was family. And unfortunately, because I was in sports, I chose the wrong group of friends, which led me to a party lifestyle. I don't know if you know this about me, Tyler. I don't know if I've ever really told you my childhood.
No, we're kind of new ground, but that's all right. Yeah.
So All right. You were a phenomenal bishop, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have to say, one of my best being around you. You were phenomenal. And so it would have been really cool for us to be able to have some of these conversations. But I'm sure I would love to hear your story too sometime. But so growing up, I like went outside of the home to find this family that I could be like. Everyone wants to feel wanted, right? Mm-hmm. I felt wanted in this group, except it was the wrong group. So I got into drugs and alcohol, and like it led down. I got, stuff like DUI. I was the party guy. I was the life of the party. And so I didn't really develop that skill set when I was early in high school. And then luckily some things happened and I started to make changes because of some certain situations that happened. And it led me out onto giving up football before I went on a mission. And I just turned my focus straight to a mission and went out on my mission. And that's where I developed a skill.
Okay.
Hold on. Whoa, back up.
Yeah. I love that, because there's a couple things that I'm curious about. When in hindsight, right, looking at the house, the makeup of the house and sort of the dynamics of the household.
Yeah.
Was there, were you aware of, I don't even want to use the word dysfunction, but the dysfunction that was there? And were you picking out things that were positives for you? Because it's interesting. You describe your mom as a optimist, describe your dad as a pessimist. And I think that maybe there's some things that you and I would probably connect with on that. So I'm curious, what were you noticing that was influencing you, that was pulling you at that time?
So I'm like my mother.
Okay.
I'm a big time optimist. And my other brother, he's like, and we'll get into this actually. You want to hear it. My brother tried suing me for $10 million. That'll be an interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of things that have happened since we've known each other when, after I moved to Utah and started this stuff, but we'll get into that. But my mother, she was phenomenal. She was super loving. She kept the household together. Like she's the reason I am who I am today. Like she was a very, very powerful person, very strong faith. She's
what's her name? What's her name?
Gail.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's powerful.
And spiritually speaking, right, when we're talking about what faith looks like in the household, what did that look like with that dynamic with mom and dad?
So this is the thing that my parents did a really good job of. They always showed up every Sunday for church. Like they were super disciplined when it came to that. And my father, he woke up every morning early. My mother did too. Both of them were working. And my father, this is interesting. So he was like, I think it's called dual personality. So sometimes he could be like really cool and positive. Most of the time he would be like this other person. And that was difficult. But my mother, like she was our spiritual foundation of the household. And she was our motivator. She's an inspiration. Like that's just her character. And so that's why I am a motivator.
A builder. Yeah. I love that.
Okay, so you talk about you kind of glossed over this, Lester. So I just want to go back. I love me some sports, and as a kid, right, sports means a lot. Sports gives you a lot. Sports develops and reveals character, and I can feel, you were talking about football being the one that you thought maybe could open up some doors and provide you some opportunities down the road. And it sounds like you put that up on the altar. And you just sacrificed that.
Yeah, that was difficult. You just reminded me of the story. So I was getting recruited at many different schools. From Boise State was one of them. Arizona State University was another. And in high school, this happened, is my friend one night was calling me. It was late, and I was like prepared. Like I was going to do lacrosse. I don't know if you guys know much about lacrosse, but I was about to have lacrosse was going to be so fun because you get to hit people in lacrosse also.
Yeah, it's like football with sticks, right?
Football with sticks.
Hockey without skates, right?
Yeah.
I loved it. It was amazing hockey. Exactly. So I was going to sleep early, and I was going to wake up because and I had my first lacrosse game the next day, and my friend bugged me that night. He's like, "Hey, I need you to pick me up from this party and take me home." I said, no. Long story short, I was going to go pick him up. It was like 11:30 at night or something. And so I'm leaving my subdivision, and it was the first stoplight outside of my subdivision. I'm driving straight through this intersection, and a dump truck pulls in front of me. We both had green lights, but he was turning, so he had a yield sign. Like he didn't have an arrow, right?
Right.
So he has to wait for me to go. I'm going straight. The dump truck pulled in front of me, and I had to slow down so I didn't hit him. But a family was driving behind that dump truck, tailgating him, and we hit head on. And I went through the windshield of the car. Body hit the hood. I flew back in the car. I didn't have my seatbelt on, and ended up in the hospital, and I had a brain bleed. That night, our bishop and my father and others came and gave me a blessing, and it was amazing. 3 hours after they did an MRI and found that brain bleed, 3 hours after the blessing, they gave me a blessing after that, it was no longer there. And the doctors are like, I don't know how this happened. And the next day, my friend who I was going to go pick up, his father came into the hospital, and he said, "Hey, listen, you should be dead right now. You're alive for a reason, and God kept you alive for a reason. You better figure out what it is." And so that was like a turning point for me. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to figure this out.
This is your senior year?
This is my senior year.
Yeah.
And so that started to lead me down a path of, okay, maybe I should figure this out. My brother's wife, my brother was out in Bosnia, I think at the time. And she was very non-judgmental. And she handed me the Book of Mormon one day. And she's like, read this, it'll help you. But she didn't pressure me on it. And so I was like, one day I wasn't feeling good, and I ran to, if you're okay, I'm just going to get into this part of the story.
Yeah, please.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So
just so you know, the formula for a successful show is more of you and less of us.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay. So one night I chose to take the Book of Mormon to the football field. And that's where my sanctuary is at the football field. And I ran to Meridian High School football field. I went to the 50-yard line. This is at nighttime. So you got the empty stadium, you got the moon out, the moon shining down on the moonlight on the field. And I walk out to the 50-yard line, and I'm just remembering like these highlights of playing on this football field. And I went and knelt down on the 50-yard line, and I said a prayer, and I asked Heavenly Father, I said, if you're real, if you're there, I need your help, and I want to know you, and I want to be happy. And I just asked a simple prayer. Like, it was just a simple prayer. Help me know that this is the path that I should go down. And after I said that prayer, I've heard of stories of people like flipping open to like the perfect scripture after they said
Right.
it. So I was like, you know what? I'll test it. So I opened up the Book of Mormon, and I think it was Alma 36:3. I'm not sure if that's the exact scripture verse, but it was, and now, oh my son, Helaman. And I heard that you're supposed to put you're supposed to liken the scriptures to yourself. So I put my name in it, and I said, and now, oh my son, Lester, behold, thou art in thy youth, and therefore I beseech of thee that thou wilt hear my words and learn of me. For if you should put your trust, I'm messing up the scripture.
You got it. You're good.
Is it? Can you?
Yeah, you're spot on, man.
Spot?
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see. I beseech of thee that thou wilt hear my words and learn of me, for I do know that whosoever shall put their trust in God
shall be supported in their trials and their troubles and their afflictions, and shall be lifted up at the last day.
Amen, brother.
And when I was kneeling down on that 50-yard line, like one of the greatest feelings in the world is running onto the field and you have everybody in the stands cheering. Like that's one of the coolest feelings. And it literally felt like nothing I had ever felt before. As I was kneeling and I read that scripture, it was like there were angels in the stadium just screaming and cheering me on. And I've never felt that before in my life. And as soon as that happened, I said, listen, it's done. I'm changing. And I'm going to make these decisions that will help me to come to know Heavenly Father better. And so that was a huge turning point in my life. And like literally every letter that I started getting from colleges, I wouldn't even open. I literally have letters from colleges that I still have that I've never opened.
Wow.
And this was the adversity that came. My friend, who his brother played, his name was Jordan McFadden, really cool guy. His brother played in the NFL. They started a petition at my school to keep me from going on a mission.
Oh, wow.
And there were 450 signatures signed.
Wow.
450 signatures signed for me not to go on my mission. And then they came and brought it to me. And I said, listen, you're making the biggest mistake of your life if you go on a mission.
Times 450 signatures.
So how do you brush that off?
Well, I also got my patriarchal blessing during this process of, turning and meeting with the bishop and making a lot of these changes that I was making in my life. I luckily got there was a girl I met that helped me stay away from parties. And she was a really good example to me. I got my patriarchal blessing, and the patriarchal blessing was very specific. It even talked about football. And it talked about me, if I served a worthy and faithful mission, it talked about having a career in football. And so I just put my trust in God and said, this is my decision. And I went out, and that was the best decision of my life, going on that mission.
Where did you go? Where'd you go?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee.
At first, when I read the mission call, I was like, Nashville? I thought I was going to go to like some foreign country and just be such a big guy that people are going to want to listen to me.
Well, you know what I think is interesting though, I've thought about this a lot just in my own, circumstances and spiritual journey. And, I think that when we think about being able to recognize that voice and have the courage to take action on it, and right, there's this process, but I also think that once we tap into that, at least for me, I can start to look back and recognize all these other times when it was there.
Yeah.
Right. And it's sort of like this tuning process. It's like, I've had experiences prior to making big life-changing decisions, right, when I was young, but I don't think I knew I don't think I knew what to call it, maybe, or maybe I didn't take action on it every time. But so I love that idea of, obviously you had these big life-changing events that helped lead you to this, but it's that we can recognize that it's sort of this innate thing that's inside of us that we are just trying to figure out how to tap into. And then once we tap into it, the trick then is, right, like, how do we stay in tune to it?
Yeah.
How do we stay motivated to continue to, if someone calls me to go on a podcast and I want to make an excuse to get out of it, one of those things, like, how do I stay in it? Right. But I love that, Lester. I appreciate that story, because I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that, the idea of, well, shoot, I don't know how to recognize it. I couldn't define what it, hearing the voice of, or the Holy Ghost and acting on it. I couldn't tell you what that looks like, but then I appreciate you sharing your story, because I think it sheds light on that process of being from a place that I'm not sure what it is to, oh shoot, yeah, this is what it is. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and here's what I love. And I don't know, Lester, if you've ever gone down this road. On this podcast, we love this idea of hinge moments, right? The concept is that our history and history of civilization really turn on these tiny hinges. Huge swings and changes in our life actually have a nexus of this tiny hinge. Could be an encounter, could be a conversation. Can you imagine where your life would be if the dad of that friend didn't come visit you in the hospital that day?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
or even
I wouldn't have been on a mission, and
right.
I got injured in college football pretty early on.
Yeah.
Right. And think about too, even if he did, your willingness to hear it, like your willingness to listen to his invitation to figure it out, right? Because you could have said, "Get out of here, old man," or like whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Your son got me in a wreck.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We're constantly presented with that bitter or better, and that idea of like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to take that invitation. And that invitation is going to put me squarely on the 50-yard line of my high school football field on a moonlit night. And I'm going to come to know Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ through the Book of Mormon a little bit. And that's going to be a match on a pile of, right, on a bonfire that's going to put you in places. And then you start playing the game of like, think of every person you met in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Right. And their lives changed because your life changed because that guy decided, I got to go talk to a lost kid in the hospital right now. That's props. You know that guy's name? You know the name of the guy that came to you in the hospital?
Yeah. Mr. McFadden. I don't remember his first name.
Well, I just love throwing the name out there.
Yeah.
I love throwing the name out there. I love throwing your mom's name out there. I love throwing his name out there. Just trying to honor that guy, right? Because that guy. And the thing is, he didn't wake up and say, I'm going to go change a young man's life, right? He's probably thinking about his own mortality, the mortality of his son, the mortality of his son's friend, right? And just, I'm going to go say a few words to this boy. So,
Mike, the thing that really blows my mind about that whole process is I don't know that Mr. McFadden thought twice about that conversation, right? Stopped off at the hospital, has a conversation with Lester, gets a milkshake at McDonald's on the way home, never thinks about it again. Meanwhile, your life changes 180 degrees, and that sets off this string of events where people's lives are impacted,
Yeah.
but we talk about
Can I say one thing about that?
Yeah.
So there was 450 signatures signed about me, it basically telling me that I shouldn't go on a mission. And when I was going through this process, initially, I was still going to some of these parties. I just stopped drinking and I stopped doing drugs. People were asking me like, why are you doing this? It doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, listen, I started with saying, I'm just trying something new.
Yeah.
And I would still be at the parties. Eventually I stopped going to the parties. But then once I announced it, I'm going on my mission, I ended up having 100 people that were non-members show up for my farewell talk.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah.
And it was a really cool, like I had one of my friends show up, and I had a bunch of them, like it went all the way back to the back of the basketball court, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had one friend, Arnell Kaddick, and we still talk all the time. And he's Muslim. He's from Bosnia, and he came over at a very young age. His story is amazing. But they announced me to come up and speak, and Arnell stands up and he's like, "Pastor, let's go!" And then he's clapping, and all of a sudden he slows down and he looks around, and like everyone's looking at him, and he's like, "Sorry."
That's awesome. I love that, man.
And yeah, not a big fan of clapping in church.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, hey, I think because we can talk about change, or we can show people.
Yeah.
Right. We can talk about the gospel and how the gospel changes people, or you can show 450 people.
Yeah.
And people respond to, whoa, I know Lester. I know who he was. I'm wondering what happened.
And you know what, Lester, I also like that idea where you say, well, I'm just trying something new.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's like, I was just having this conversation the other day with a young person, and I was telling him, I said, call it whatever you want to call it, right? You're in that group of people. I don't care what you call it. Tell them that you don't, you don't like barley. I don't know, whatever it is, right? You just come up with your thing. But I think as those roots sort of start to sink in, you start to define it a little bit more clear, right? And then it's that process where eventually it's just like, look, this is what I believe, and this is why I'm doing it, and this is where I'm going, and people embrace that. But I appreciate that moment where it's just like, I'm just trying something new, because I love that idea of sort of gaining courage, right? In your belief system, because I think everyone's been there where you're in a place where judgment is coming and you're just like, what am I going to tell these people where I don't get judged too harshly?
Well, Tyler, you just had that experience at work where you say, I don't drink, and then you left and you came back. It's like, let me actually explain why I don't drink. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That courage, sometimes it takes a little bit to roll down the mountain and gain some steam for us to actually speak up and link it to faith. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's important for people to understand, because I think that we discount our own faith by saying, I wasn't bold enough to say this thing. Right. And it's okay to not be bold enough to say that thing, as long as you're progressing down that path. Right. And you're letting the roots take hold. I think that's the important part.
Yeah. I think we roll out of bed rich. We don't roll out of bed every day bold.
No, like most of the time. Yeah. Not right. So I appreciate that. I love that aspect of that.
You know how you change so much through your mission?
Yeah.
I became very bold when I came home from my mission. And my friends, when I got back, it was amazing that I had been gone for 2 years and I changed significantly. My friends hadn't. And so as soon as I got back from my mission, all my friends reached out to me. They're like, and one of my neighbors, his name's Kyle Brotzman. He ended up playing at Boise State University, was a phenomenal kicker there. And most of my friends were over at his house. It was the second night I was back. And they're like, you got to come over, just come over and say hi. They were having a party. It was like in high school.
Yeah. I
went over to his house, and I was like, instantly, I'm like, wow, this isn't a great feeling in here. And so what do? I just got back from our mission. I'm in this house teaching them the first lesson. And as I'm trying to teach them the first lesson, you got people saying cuss words in the background. You got people that are drinking, and just a lot of chaos. And I'm like, what am I doing? You can't really feel the spirit in here. I need to leave.
Yeah.
And so I gave everybody hugs. And that night, I had a dream that I will never forget. I was at a poolside, and there were lots of women. There was, my friends there, and my friends were like, "Hey, let's go, follow us." And we go down and we go to this cave. And I don't know if you've ever been splunking or whatever, or cave diving, but we went into this cave, and obviously when you go into a cave, it gets very dark. And they're like, "Let's go." It was like super fun. Like, we're all going down this cave and I'm following my friends. And the deeper we went into that cave, something that I fear is spiders. And all of a sudden I started feeling spider webs. And as I got deeper and deeper in the cave, there was a huge web. And I knew that if I went any farther, that I would get caught in that web. And so I immediately turned around. There was light at the end of the tunnel. I sprinted towards it. And as soon as I got to the light, I woke up. And as soon as I woke up, it was almost like a translation of the dream. I prayed and I asked, what was that? And the feeling came to me that I can love my friends, but I have to be careful about continuing to hang out with them too much. Because then if I do, it will lead to me going back to who I was previously.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I have to love them from a distance.
Yeah. Mike, I just think, like, when I hear that, like, right, going back to that idea of, like, how do we recognize things and have the courage to act on things? Sometimes, we've got to make tough decisions, right? And
I appreciate, I think you changed a lot, Lester. Just hearing your story, I think you changed a lot going into your mission. Yeah. And then, of course, you spend consecrated time serving the people of Tennessee, and that's gonna change your heart. That's gonna change your nature. But I think it's really important that we remember that change can be undone.
Yep.
Yeah.
We talk about remembering and forgetting, and so many times, instead of, what did you do? So many times the question for people that might be struggling is really like, man, what did you forget? Right? How did we get back to this place? And I was recently hanging out with some young men, sharing some thoughts with them, and D&C 9339 came up. So Doctrine and Covenants, this is revelation that the prophet Joseph Smith received, and I think it's really appropriate to what you just shared, Lester. And that wicked one cometh and taketh away light and truth through disobedience. Like, we're holding light and truth. And I think it's interesting that there's a cave, right? And there's darkness. It's about light and dark. That's the battle. That's what the war was before we got here. That's what the war is here, right? And as we are obedient, we gain light and truth. That wicked one cometh and taketh it through disobedience. We literally give him our light, right? So we could be in this place where I'm changed and I love Heavenly Father and I know Jesus Christ. But if we are not vigilant in keeping our promises, we could yield it right back to him. Yeah. I thought that dream was perfect timing too, because I came home from my mission and I was weird. That transition was difficult, right? I'd go pick up basketball at the park, and I'm teaching lesson 1 at the park. Like, what's going on, right? This has got to be.
Let's go.
This has got to become somewhat normal, right? This got to come. I got to decompress here. But that idea of, man, the cool thing, and we're not living in fear of going back to old ways. That's not it. There's a confidence in our change, but we got to understand how precious that light and truth is that we have.
Yeah. And I think there's, in that moment, it's this idea of leveling up, right? Like, I remember almost the identical experience. Came home, went to hang out with a bunch of people that were non-members. I love them. I still love them. I talk to them to this day. We're tight. And I remember being in there, and I remember thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, I gotta.
Like a dog to his vomit.
Yeah, I was like, I got to move on to the next phase, and so I think that when we tap into that, And this is that whole pursuit of becoming better, right? Because when we get to the point where we can recognize promptings and we feel those are pushing us to move to level up, to get to higher ground, to become a better version of ourselves. However incremental that is, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we're taking that next step to the next level. And I love it. And Mike, to your point, I think it's every single time that's a hinge moment, right? Because it's so easy to say, I just relax for a second here and I'm good. I can, it's not taking me, it's not like I'm going to be drinking, right? Or whatever that is, So it's super tenuous. And if we're not focused on it, man, it's easy to take, and we've all been there. We've all taken 2 steps back and had to get ourselves back to where we were. I mean, it's
a little
part
shoots and ladders game, right?
It's part of the journey, but it sure does feel good when we're in a position or in a place where we're more cognizant of our efforts to move forward rather than relaxed and willing to just go with the flow.
And the beautiful thing about this too, though, when we talk about words like forward and better, it's better than we were yesterday, not better than the people around us.
100%. Yeah.
Right. And
100%.
Forward on our path and on our journey, not forward like, see y'all later. I'm going. I
mean, I've always felt like, and I've probably shared this with both of you, I don't know, but I've always felt like the challenge is to envision when you were at your best and push yourself past that point, right? Like become better than that. Like, what does that look like? What effort would it take to get you to that point? And, sometimes I've been light years away from where I was at my best, and I always tell my kids, I'm like, the challenge is hopefully when we ask ourselves that question, it's okay, that was an hour ago, or that was yesterday. But sometimes it's like, that was 6 months ago. That was a year ago. Right.
Let's be real right now, Lester. I appreciate your comments and I appreciate what you just shared, because like some days that gap is small.
Yeah.
Right. Some days that gap between who I am and who I want to be is like, I'm right there, man. I'm right there. I'm a break away. I got this. And lately I'm not. Right. And what I'm taking away from your experience, and it's interesting, Tyler, because here we are again, we have another person who's I talk about your dad's friend who came to visit you in the hospital. Let's talk about your sister-in-law.
Yeah. 100%.
Right? Your sister-in-law, who's non-judgmental, comes to you and says, hey, this will help. And to me, that would just a huge reminder of like, where's the Book of Mormon study in your life right now, Mike? Right? Like that gap might feel like it's widening. Hey, listen to Lester, because a personal study of the Book of Mormon will close that gap better than anything we got. And props to your sister-in-law for having the heart, the love, right? Out of love, not preachy, and probably just like hey, it works for me. Give this a go.
Yeah, not even telling me I have to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
She knows.
Super simple.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. So,
and I think that's key too. Like if we can just highlight that.
Yeah.
Because so many people don't want to change. They want help. They don't want change, but sometimes the change will come as natural fruit of the process, right?
Yeah.
Or we want change, but we don't want to be told we need to change. Yeah. We want to choose it for ourselves. And so many times I see it all the time, like people like trying to tell you got to do this. And it's as simple as I was in Tampa and my sister-in-law was my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were telling their daughter, you need to drink water. And the daughter, Josie, said, no, I'm not going to. No. And I was like, hey, listen, I got this skill set. Watch this. I was like, I can get her to drink some water. And I said, Heather, what motivates Josie? What does she like? And she's like, well, right now she likes being defiant. And I'm like, don't put that thought out there. Don't tell her she's defiant.
Right.
I was thinking, I didn't say that. I was like, okay.
Right.
And so I brought up an idea of what happens when we get dehydrated. Well, our muscles start cramping up. And I was like, oh, you don't want your muscles to cramp up and your whole body to like restrict and not feel good, right? I said, when you don't drink water and you get dehydrated, this is what happens. And she's like, yeah, I don't want that. And I was like, man, if you just drink a little bit of water, you can keep your body healthy and you don't have to worry about your muscles cramping up. And she's like, oh, okay. And I was like, do you want to drink some water? And she's like, I want to drink some water.
Right.
So I think a lot of times, if instead of us telling people what they need to do to change, but just presenting an option that as simple as this can change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, like that, and we've had this kind of come up multiple times throughout different episodes. It's just, you got your sister-in-law, you got Mr. McFadden. It's like these small invitations, or not even an invitation, right? It can just be it can be just a simple interaction with someone that shows that they love you in whatever way that is. I mean, that's a big deal, right? And I think that, and I have this feeling all the time. Like, in fact, today I was driving. I thought, I need to text this guy something. And then I was like, I'll text him in like after I get out of this meeting. And then I just was like, you know what? I'll just pull over and just do it now. Mm. And because I think that I pass those moments up a lot, but I think that those are huge. They can be huge. Now, I think that someone like your sister-in-law or Mr. McFadden that just have that, probably had a prompting and said, shoot, I should give this book to Lester. Right. And what happens if you're like, I'm gonna squash that for a few hours and wait till the next Netflix show is over and then we'll figure it out. I think that I just think there's urgency attached to those promptings. And sometimes we don't recognize the urgency, right? We don't know what that urgency is all about.
Yeah, I use it in my business a lot. And when I'm talking to people is revelation has a short shelf life.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Yeah.
And so that's when I think it was, I don't remember which prophet said that, but I got that from one of the prophets. And I always teach that in the company. And I say immediate implementation.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, I think Thomas Monson, right? Opportunity of a lifetime and the lifetime of an opportunity, right? Those opportunities don't last very long. That window opens and you need to hit it when it, almost like that running back hits the hole or the middle linebacker, right? Like there's a crack there. You better hit it because it's going to be closed up real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think of Nick Skolovic. Nick Skolovic was a former guest and he wasn't, he hadn't joined the church yet. And he was in a Sunday school class and we were hanging out together and he was talking about meeting with the missionaries and feeling some things. And I was like, that cools off really fast.
Yeah.
So you better strike while that's hot.
Yeah.
Well, somewhere in there, so you come home. We know you're not doing the party scene.
Yeah.
We know you're not following your friends into caves. Somewhere in there, you meet a girl.
Oh yeah.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about life after Tennessee.
So I got back from Tennessee. One of my friends, Marcos Frias, he said, he was in the singles ward. He said, I have a job for you. And I was like, phenomenal. I need a job. And I was like, what is it? He said, it's knocking doors. And so I was like, okay, cool. Let's go. And it was selling alarm systems. So I got into alarm sales. And that's how I met my wife. So I was out in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was my first year in 2008. And I was rooming with her then brother-in-law. And he thought I was cool. So do a lot of people. No, just kidding. He thought I was cool. And so he introduced me to her. She came out and we talked on the phone for 2 weeks. And then she came out and visited. And in 4 days of meeting each other in person, we decided we were going to get married.
Whoa. Okay.
Walk me through that 4-day process. What does that look like, man? Because I
There
had
were
to
lots of
really
ups and
convince my
downs.
wife, man.
Okay, that might be, we've done this a little bit, Lester, and I don't think we've ever heard a story like that.
Yeah, and it was very interesting that on the way home, we were driving to the airport to drop off her sister and Jane, my wife, my now wife, and we leaned forward in the car to tell Dan, who again, that was her brother-in-law at the time, and Amy, her sister, and we say, "Hey guys, we've decided we're getting married." And they like instantly they freak out and they're like, "Oh no." Dan's like, "I'm gonna have to answer for this because my mother-in-law is she's amazing, she's phenomenal, she's very controlling." And so he's like, "Oh, Kathy's gonna kill me."
Wow. So that was 2008.
Yeah, 2008.
That you guys met.
And now he's probably taking mad credit for it, right?
He's the matchmaker.
Yeah, that's right.
Be eternally grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So how long after you guys had met, made the decision did you get married?
6 months.
Okay.
So we you know how it is. You meet your now wife, and you get super Twitter pated. I was in Cincinnati, she was in Utah. I'm like, I can't do this. I moved to Utah, and then I was there for a little bit, and then I moved back to Idaho after the summer. And then we just did the traveling back and forth, and then we ended up getting married, and we got to live that life where you have nothing.
Yeah.
You have nothing. And literally you're going through times just to pay your rent by selling your guitar.
Oh man.
And
your platelets.
Yeah. And your school books. Figuring out any way that you can make payments.
Yeah.
That's the hustle, right? We love the hustle, Tyler.
Yeah, we love the hustle, and I also love the grind of, everyone has to experience that, where you're sweating it a little bit, even my kids, they're at college and they've got a safety net, but I'm like, that safety net's going to kick in kind of low. You got to let them sweat it out a little bit, man.
Low and not very responsive.
No, it's not super comfortable to get in that safety net.
We'll work with pink bills, not red bills. Right?
Yes.
We'll work with the pink ones. So when you get, so you're married.
Yeah.
Where do you live as a young married couple?
So first year we were in Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
And I got into selling cell phones for Sprint. And then we moved to Utah after the first year. So for the first year, I was like trying to get back into football to play over at Boise State University. I came back initially, even though I was going to go out and sell alarm systems, I came back to work out. I had 3 months to get prepared. I came in. Dan Hawkins was the coach when I was getting recruited. He went to Colorado. Chris Peterson was the now coach. He was the offensive coordinator when I was getting recruited by Dan Hawkins. And I was well known for being a middle linebacker. Like that's where, I made my mark. And I came in
probably literally on some dudes, right?
Put a couple people in the hospital, not on purpose.
Yeah, right. That's
cool. Yeah, I don't know.
That's
so
football.
Yeah, so I came in. Chris Peterson actually remembered me, but he's like, "Listen, it's been 2 years. You've been on a mission. Come do a tryout." And I did the tryout. My hamstring ended up on the 40. I ripped my hamstring, and so they're like, "Hey, listen, get in shape. You've been back only for 3 months from the mission, and then come back the following year." And I got into the best shape of my life. And I was strong. I was fast. I was 230. I was like 8% body fat, 230 pounds. I was super strong, super fast. I was running, well, to me, it was fast, 4.640. And I was bigger, stronger, and faster than every other linebacker that they had. So I was like, this is shoe in. And I went to do the 40-yard dash again, and I ripped my hamstring again.
Oh, man.
Same
My other
hamstring?
one. My
Oh,
other
Your
one.
other one. Wow.
The other one. And so I was like 5 yards into it again. And I'm like, I look up to the sky and I'm like, man, Heavenly Father, I'm going to take this as a message. And that was super hard to deal with. But after that, when football didn't work out, we moved to Utah so that, she could be closer to her parents. And I got into Weber State University, and then I stuck with door-to-door sales, selling alarm systems. And I did that for 2008 to 2013, early 2013.
Well, given your ability to convince young girls to drink water, I'm sure you were able to sell some alarm systems.
Yeah, you know what? I did pretty well. I had some really good mentors with me, and I went on from selling alarm systems to then doing solar. And that's what led me down to San Diego, and where I met Tyler. And that was a really cool experience in San Diego. Man, I got into really good shape in San Diego. We were playing basketball with Robbie Clyde for like
that's
3
right.
hours a day in the morning at LA Fitness. I missed it. And I was there for 2 years in San Diego. And then I was working with actually Robbie Clyde, and I had just moved over to Sun Edison from some other companies that I was working with to work with Sun Edison, and they went bankrupt. And so then Jane and I look at each other. We're like, we have a home up in Utah. It's super expensive to live in San Diego. And so we were like, maybe, and the solar market was killing it in Utah. So I was like, maybe we should go up there and get back up to Utah and do solar in Utah. So that's why we ended up moving to Utah. So this is where this story gets interesting. This is the story that you haven't heard since we met in San Diego. I didn't want to start a business. I just wanted to sell solar and not have to feel like I'm babysitting people.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to take it easy and sell deals, make a lot of money. And I did well real quick. And then I'm like, I was working for another company. And then I'm like, man, it's in me. I gotta build something. Like it doesn't get me excited to just go sell deals. I want to be a part of building something. So I started a business, called it Genesis Clean Energy Authority, Genesis Clean Energy. And the reason I called it that was because in Genesis, the first or second scripture is, and God said, let there be light. And so it's like, Genesis. Oh, that's a cool name.
Yeah.
And I just started selling. And then eventually I kept on, and I started recruiting salespeople. And I ended up finding some electrician off of Google. And I convinced him to give up his dream of running his company to come team up with me to build this company. And we were super successful pretty quickly. And I started making the most money I had ever made in my life. And that is the point where my life started to get off course. And it was by very simple, it wasn't a fast process. It was slow.
It's by degrees, right?
It was by degrees. And I had gotten up to the top of this mountain that I felt I was on success-wise through making sure that I had my relationship with God right, through studying and reading books about self-development and sales and all this type of stuff, right? Business books too. Mm-hmm. And by having a phenomenal morning routine and working out and making sure that that was all taken care of, and making sure my relationship with Jane was phenomenal. And then slowly my focus started to change to 100% on the money side. And literally everything derailed. Everything. My company that we were building, and I had brought 3 owners into it, 3 other people I gave ownership to in that company. And I still remember the day I was going up to Idaho, taking a trailer up there, because we were like, hey, we need to pull back some of our stuff. We thought someone was going to, some of the people were going to steal some of our stuff up in Idaho. We were multi-state. It was Utah, Idaho, Arizona, Texas. And 2 of my business partners said, hey, come to the office in Ogden, Utah. And they sat me down in my office and they said, well, I think we need to shut this thing down. And like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means to give up. Like my identity is, and I feed myself this constantly to this day of like, you never give up. And so when they told me that, I was like, okay, I guess the plug is pulled. And so they are talking and going over like how this is going to work. We had to let go one day, 80 people. Like that was
wow.
That was difficult. And then like in that meeting, I'm like, man, I have my head down in my lap and I'm like, I was the financial guarantor on everything. And literally the only signer on anything. So in that situation, the only, the other guys, the other 3 owners could help me through this process of like paying off our debts. They did not help. And I wasn't like, I'm not the guy that I didn't go after them. And so I was at that point, negative $2 million in debt. So I was spiritually bankrupt. I was mentally bankrupt. I was emotionally bankrupt. My relationship with Jane was the worst it had ever been at that point. And then physically, I was bankrupt. And the last one is, even though it turned to my number one, and I was making the most money I'd ever made in my life, it became, now I was financially bankrupt.
Yeah.
And it was like, I felt this feeling of like, just as fast as he can give, he can take away.
What, Lester, if looking back on that process of finding yourself in that situation in that office that day with your partners, are there mile markers or signs on the road as you look back where you can say that's a pothole I probably should have swerved around, or that was something I should have avoided?
You remember the story I told you about that dream?
Yeah.
A lot of this started when we opened up an office in Boise, Idaho. And, Lester's doing real good. So all my friends are like, hey, Lester, we want to work with you. We want to build this company.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, let's go. And so I go to Idaho. I recruit all my friends. And now I'm hanging out with my friends a lot. And I still love them and I still talk to them today, but I allowed myself to get caught back in that web.
Yeah.
And it did not happen overnight, but the more that I hung out with them and back into some of these scenes that I was in previously and early in my life, it got me stuck in this spider web.
So look, considering that and looking at back at that, I mean, outside of we'll take the financial part of it out for a second. What would you say to someone who finds themselves in that situation where they're They feel they're getting drugged back into old habits or things that are widening a gap between them and the things that are ultimately important to them. What advice would you have to that person that's headed down that road?
That's a good question. Like literally, and I talk to people within my company now, and there's been specific things that I've done to change and get back on course. And the cool thing is that like that change and that getting back on course can happen very quickly. Like this is not necessarily a thing that takes years.
Right.
And so a lot of times we have a tendency that we're going to focus on these areas of our life, and it's like spinning plates. And we do really good because our focus is over here, spinning these plates. And then all of a sudden we notice, hey, we're not doing so good over here. So we start to focus over here. And then what happens to all these plates? Right. These are doing really well, but all these fall.
Right.
And so like I juggled, this was a dilemma that I was facing. And I went to other leaders and I asked a bunch of leaders, I was like, how do you have balance in your life? And every answer that I got, and there were some church leaders that told me this too, is that you don't really have balance. And I didn't like connect.
Balance is a myth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would hear that all the time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't connect with that. I don't believe that balance is necessarily a myth. I believe that we can succeed spiritually, mentally, emotionally, relationally, physically, and financially all at the same time. So if I'm doing the best I've ever done in my life financially, there's no reason that spiritually I could be at the best of my life and at the best of my life in all those areas. And so I recreated this individual who I was. I went back to the drawing board and I said, hey, blank canvas, even though like, listen, Tyler, let me just tell you one experience real quick when I was in this dark place. One morning I woke up after this happened to my wife screaming. And she opened up our bank account. I took a snapshot of this. Maybe I could show this on the screen. Yeah. I woke up to my wife screaming, where did all of our money go? And she showed me because I was trying to figure out what happened. And this is a snapshot of our bank account. Can you see that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's not pretty.
I was like, I had to double check that. Like, is that a plus sign? Like, right. It was negative $1.2 million. I didn't even know bank accounts could go negative. And like you talk about emotional roller coaster, that was.
Yeah.
And my hinge, you mentioned hinge, my huge hinge moment at that time, like once the emotions came down and I told my wife, listen, I'll create a solution for this. Trust me. My hinge moment was,
I'll create a solution for you. Trust me.
Trust me. And I had to leave the house so that I could put pen to paper and figure out a solution for the situation. And I got my wife and I, after I went out of the house, drove down the street and started to put a solution together for this. I sat down with my wife and she told me that she trusted me and she believed in me. And she said that when I knelt down at the altar and I said that I would marry you for time and all eternity, I meant it. And that was the exact words that I needed from her, to have confidence that I could put a solution together and make something happen. And so I put a solution together and I didn't go bankrupt. I was able to pay off all my debtors and I created a company that we've done over $75 million. And that didn't happen overnight. It started with me looking at, okay, I got $2 million of debt. I cannot pay that. I met with one of the companies I owed $1 million to. I went to their office when all this happened. And I went by myself. And they took me up into this upper room. It's a huge headquarters. And they took me into this back corner room. I was like, are they going to kill me? It was like a huge executive room, big long table. And they got all their they got a bunch of executives I owed them $1 million. So they got all these executives sitting there. And they're like, do you have a check for $1 million today? No, I don't have anything. But I told them, listen, I'm here today because I want to pay you back. I just don't have the ability to pay you back right now. And I said, if you'll give me time, this is what my plan is. I'm gonna start a new company, and I'm going to do it differently and learn from what I did wrong in this previous company. And I'm going to pay you guys back. I just need time. And just doing that, they respected it. And they gave me time. In fact, it took me, I think it took me 2 years, but they gave me the time to pay him back. And it was a huge blessing on that they gave me the time. But that's super difficult to look at that mountain of debt that I have to pay back and create this solution. So I heard a story. Will Smith told this story about how his father one summer tore down a wall outside of his business, and he told his sons to build that wall back up. And they thought they would never be able to do it. It would take forever. And what Will Smith said is that he learned a principle that day, is that you don't say that you're going to build the biggest, baddest wall. You don't start there. He said, you focus on laying one brick as perfectly as a brick can be laid. And if you do that enough times in a row over time, soon you will have your wall. And he said they ended up getting that wall built eventually. And now that became, when I heard that at that time when I was struggling, and that became my motto in life. In fact, and everywhere around our business, you might not be able to see this. I don't know if you can, but everything around our business is one brick a day. And so we focus on the small little things that will eventually, over time, done consistently, will have the biggest changes.
I love that.
This is who I am today. To eventually be able to, luckily, Heavenly Father's blessed my family through this process. I restructured who I was, and I recreated my identity by I have a routine and rituals on a daily basis. Number one is spiritual. Okay, so every single day I connect with Heavenly Father. Number two is mental. So every day I'm doing something to feed my mind, business, sales, something. I'm learning. You know, what I'm going to add into this is your podcast. You sent me some podcasts, and I was able to listen to a couple minutes of it, and I was like, wow, Tyler and Mike are super powerful. I only heard a little bit of it, and it was Troy Blanchard, I think is his name.
Yeah.
I only heard a couple minutes. I'm going to go back and listen to that, but this is something that I'm going to add into my daily as your guys' podcast, because when I was listening to that, and just being here and listening to you guys are both super powerful. So this is a blessing.
Well, just so you know, it's our podcast now. So
our podcast.
Yeah, that's right, man.
You're in.
Yeah.
So spiritual, mental, emotional. I believe that one of the greatest principles of a leader and characteristics is emotional intelligence. So that's a daily focus for me, is making sure that I'm able to work through my emotions. And then we have relational. So making sure that my relationships in my life are right. Then it's physical. Every single day I sweat. Last is financial. I believe that dollars follow value. So the more value I can create, the more valuable I can become, the more that the money will just follow. And I think there's a scripture in Jacob that talks about that. But before you seek for riches, seek ye first the kingdom of God. And after you obtained hope in Christ, you shall obtain riches if you seek them, and you'll seek them for the intent to do good, to clothe the naked, to feed the hungry, to liberate the captives, and to administer relief to the sick and the afflicted. So that, like, I've restructured my life around that. Is my morning. That's my daily routine. And now when it comes to balance, I may not spend as much time on, one of these other things as I do the other, but it's something that I'm working on every single day. I'm laying a brick on each of those areas so that I don't have to just focus this day on one plate. I focus on making sure they're all spinning. And that's been able to create a lot of balance for my family and my.
Tyler, it reminds me of Chris Lee's answer, right? That talking about the balance. Like, how can I deny the fact that those quadrants or those aspects of our lives are interrelated? Right? If I'm not physically taking care of myself, how am I going to show up and be the best version of myself in these other aspects of my life? In fact, when health declines, I'm not going to be able to generate income for my family. I'm not going to be able to show up professionally. Relationships will suffer, right? So we see that all those things kind of have a through line to it. Right? And that concept of the mandala, right? Like the center holds it. Like as we're taking care of those aspects of our life, almost like we're having conversations with Shelly Anderson right now, just about being the boss of our lives across those different domains. Love that.
Yeah, I think that's that's a key that I think, the thing that I like about that, Lester, is that, and Mike, you talk about Shelly, but that idea of ownership, right? We're not giving that away to someone else, right? My emotional health, I'm not giving that away to someone else. I'm taking ownership of that. My spiritual health, I'm not going to rely on someone else to get me where I need to be. I'm going to take ownership of that. And I think when we take ownership, that it becomes this, I'm a believer that I say balance is a myth all the time, because I think that, it fluctuates where we're going to have focus at certain times. But I think that, if we're willing to take ownership, we're willing to put in the work, right? We're recognizing that this needs work and I need to be the one that's going to till the ground. And
when you hear your wife scream, Lester, and you see the negative 1.2, you could have gotten a car and driven off, raised a fist to heaven and started blaming people.
Yeah.
Right. But that idea of like, okay,
yeah,
I'm in a spot right now. And that's what that room full of executives felt. They felt and saw your ownership.
It's extreme ownership, right? We've all read that.
Extreme ownership.
We've all read that book.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, but there's something to be. I mean, I think that's a powerful. I mean, the trust that they had in you, man. I can imagine that moment. Do you have $1 million check for us, sir?
That's a crazy conversation, man. That's a stressful conversation.
It's more stressful having a bank account that's negative 1.2.
Oh my gosh. You showed me that number and I broke out in sweats, man. That's crazy. But I do think that it does shift, right? This idea of, you make a good point, Mike, talking about, putting or blaming God or blaming someone else, or, that's a convenient and easy thing to fall into, but it doesn't alleviate any of the issues that you're facing, right? It maybe makes you feel good for a second in the moment, because you can say, Jim's responsible, I'm not. But at the end of the day, it's on your doorstep, right?
It's literally hitting the accelerator in neutral. Right?
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of noise. It's a whole lot of something, but we're not doing anything to propel the situation forward at all. But it's 100% understandable and super natural man knee-jerk reaction.
Oh, totally. I've been there and I've blamed lots of people for lots of things. But I love the idea that when the dust settles and you can find that sort of even brief moment of clarity, you can say, all right, I'm going to do some work here. I'm going to do some work. I'm going to chip away at this thing. And I love, I've heard you say the one brick a day thing. And I love that. I love that.
I think all things, money follows values. I get that. But the idea too of born out of adversity, everything you see in your current reality, you can look around on any given work day and it literally is that one brick a day. Let me tell you a story of where that came from.
Yeah.
Right. Like, Tyler, we have a question. Tell me something you learned the hard way. Well, Lester just broke down.
Yeah.
He just gave a master class on the hard way.
Yeah.
Right. And really, that's the only way.
Yeah. And I think there's value, right? There's value. There's always value in that adversity if we take it that way. Right. I mean, you could sit and live out of the car for the next 4 years, right? Because you're broke. Or you can, eventually you can get to that point where you're going to say, okay, I'm going to force myself to look at the mistakes that were made, take ownership of the mistakes that were made, and not recreate them, right? Or do my best to not recreate them and move in a positive direction. And that's everything that we do, right? Whether that's we screw up in a relationship, I yell at my kid, I have an argument with my wife and she's right, but I'm telling her I'm right? Because we want to be right. But going back and saying, okay, I'm going to own that. That was me. And we're going to move forward from this spot. I mean, that's a powerful thing. It's
fireproofing life, right? We come through devastation, destruction, we lose everything. We're going to build back and it's going to be resistant to what destroyed it.
Yeah.
Right. Now Lester's got some safeguards in the form of daily routines where I will never take my eye off of that again.
Yeah.
And I love that story because, we have this podcast called The Richest Men in Town. And so many people on the surface think that this is about finances. Clearly, it isn't, right? Because you lost it all. And I think no one knows the value of $1 till you lose 1.2. Right.
Yeah, that'll
and I'm not making light of your situation.
More than that. That was just my bank account.
Yeah, I'm not making light of your situation, but I know somebody who talks about when adversity comes up, I always hear him say, adversity makes this story better. Yeah. Adversity will make our story. Oh, don't worry, Mike. Adversity will make our story better. Like I like that, right?
So it's so funny that you said that because that's what I would tell those who were closest to me. It was amazing to see you really find out who's there for you in those deepest, darkest times. And for those that were closest to me and for myself, the conversations that I'd have with myself, I would constantly motivate myself by saying, this is going to make a phenomenal story someday.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that in that mindset,
and you're in that chapter right now.
Yeah. And I think though, Mike, we talk all the time about the importance of remembering. And I think that's part of it, right? So many times we're like, well, I never want to think of this again. Right. But there's value that comes out of that. And I think that we have to, I think that principle of remembering is so important, right? It keeps us on the path.
Here might be a difficult question for you, Lester, just given where you're at right now in your family and raising boys. But Tyler is often, I love where he's often shared that we don't necessarily sell adulting very well. We don't necessarily let kids in on our struggles sometimes, and they think everything is rainbows. And then they get out in the world and they're like, whoa, this is kind of hard. Mom, Dad, you never really had it hard. And we just didn't let him in on it. So as you think about what you've been through, what have you or what will you tell your boys as they get older with the experiences that you've had?
Yeah, I've already told them. Like I've been super transparent with it. And the reason why is because one, I wanted them to understand why we were moving too, because when I was creating this solution, I called my friend up. I'm like, where's your money market? They said it was Chicago. So revelation has a short shelf life. I act immediately as soon as it comes, go. And so the following day, I was on a one-way flight out to Chicago. I knew nobody except for one person. His name was Kurt Clapier, who now works with me. But I only knew one person. And, I flew in. I didn't even know the area. Flew into Gary, Indiana. That's where my hotel was. Jane got it for me. I don't know if you guys know Gary, Indiana, but as soon as I flew in and drove to my hotel, I'm like, what am I doing?
So this was the plan. This was the solution that you worked up in the car that day.
Creating a company called Tron Solar. And, I called it Tron because I lost $50,000 in a cryptocurrency called Tron. And I'm like, I'm going to make money off this dang name somehow. And yeah, one-way flight to Chicago. And I just started networking. I went and got an extended stay, convinced 2 guys to come live with me. I had one guy living there for 3 months with me on a cot and the other living on the ground. And we just went knocking doors and selling deals. And, eventually, once we decided, yes, this is the market, we literally sold everything in Utah, everything that we had that we could sell of value. And we used that money to move and also fund the company and moved out here. And that's when I was like super transparent with my kids. And I haven't like gone into super great detail with the younger kids, but I've been very open with my oldest son because this kid, like he's next level. Like, I don't know why God blessed me with him, but he is a very good leader already. And he's a very good public speaker. And, I've been training him on leadership from a young age. And so I want to be transparent with him. He's starting to go through puberty now too. And so my father, I don't know how it was for you guys. I'm guessing they didn't get very transparent with you. I don't know. That was like back in the day, they didn't talk about this stuff. So like from an early age, I've talked about pornography. I talked about the temptations that you're going to be facing. I've talked about like, what is it going to be like as you're going through puberty and these changes that are going to be happening. And it's a very interesting thing to have these conversations with him, and helping him realize, like my conversation with him yesterday was, he was really sad after a baseball game and he didn't know why. And I was able to give him tools of how he can start to handle this stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's
emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah, that's it. Hey, Lester, can you talk for a second about the faith of Jane? Because I mean, this is disruptive, right? Life has just been turned completely upside down. And, relationships die in these circumstances, right? I mean, that's just, some of the things that really will kill a relationship are those things that have to do with financial stresses. Can you just talk for a second about the faith of Jane?
Yeah. She is she's an anchor in our household. She's a phenomenal person. So how she handled this situation, anyone could have expected a woman to start to blame their husband and get so mad and even, like you said, leave, putting him through this. And what she ended up doing is that she focused on becoming the best version of herself. She worked super hard on strengthening her relationship with God. She worked on her self-worth. She didn't look to me to, why don't you love me more? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Like she literally through this process, I don't even know how this is possible. She didn't complain at all through this process. And she showed zero resistance to the solutions that I was proposing, even though they were super difficult. You know, you're moving to a foreign land, Chicago.
Right.
And I think the power that, if you asked her, because I've asked her this too before, is that she, more than any time in her life, she leaned into God. And she, instead of blaming me, she just focused on improving herself in all those areas I had discussed earlier. And that motivated me too. So the thing that she said that, hey, when we were at the altar and I said that I would be with you till for our time in all eternity, I meant it. That was the huge motivation for me. And then her actions supported exactly what she was saying. And she focused on loving herself.
Yeah. I love that, man. I love the idea, that those difficult things that come up, that partnership is key, right? And I love the idea of just leaning in. It reminds me of Alan Michael, right? Leaning into the process and trusting that. So,
but I mean, think about it. So this relationship that we are now going through a crazy adverse chapter. You were hanging out for 4 days when you felt like you needed to hitch your wagon to her. Right? Like that to me is such a miracle.
Yeah.
I love your analogy of the wall and Will Smith building a wall. I've built a wall before, and I know it took me 3 days to work on the first row. Once that first row, retaining wall, right? Once that first row was done, we were solid. But that first row, that foundational row, takes the work, right? So I just love that when all hell is breaking loose around you, she's going back to that altar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's going back, and in that conversation with you, she's like, I'm going back to the foundation of this. And the foundation of this is built on something that isn't going anywhere. All this other stuff is above the water. I'm in this iceberg, right? This thing goes so much deeper than a little blip in a bank account right now, right? Or a big blip in the bank account right now. And I just love that about her, right? I mean, and clearly that was there day one when you met her, and it's like, okay, there's something here. There's something here. And then 4 days, let's do this. 6 months later, you're at the altar, and then down the road, that moment is what she pulls from. I think that's remarkable.
Yeah, I think I don't remember who said it, but someone said, and I believe this: when God speaks and man obeys, they begin to have power.
Yeah.
And luckily, when he spoke that I was supposed to be with Jane, thing I followed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I've been thinking too of just that idea of the fire of the covenant. Like I think Brigham Young was asking pioneer saints to go do something that was super difficult. And it was like, let the fire of that covenant that you made burn and move you to do this thing. And Jane is reflecting that, you and Jane both, but like the fire of that moment when using, the sealing power of God, we were sealed for time and all eternity. That is what is going to fuel us through this thing. And through good times, bad times, right? You're not done.
No.
I
would say like something that like we found that we could really get back to our core connection, because both of us love working out, is that we joined a gym called Orange Theory Fitness, and we work out in the mornings with each other. So it's like our time to date. Like we got the time where we go out to a restaurant or whatever it is to go on a date, right? But we're also dating each other on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
getting back to that foundational piece was huge for us when it came to our morning routines and a daily connection.
Lester, what are you hoping the Team Lester basketball squad is learning from mom and dad?
So you were talking about hinge moments. This is where I'm at in my life. I want to be, and I tell myself all the time, like I motivate myself so that I don't have to hear it from other people. I motivate myself. I want to be I feel like I'm a phenomenal father, and I've made a lot of changes in that area. My focus was my morning routine. Like I got so focused on that. I would go out and Jane and I would work out at OTF at 4:55 in the morning. Then I would go get my second workout over at Bare Fit to lift weights. Then I would come home and I would get ready and I'd go to work. And on my way to work, I would listen to my books and whatever else and being at work. There's no time there with my kids. And so I was focused on so much of my morning routine and who I was becoming, best version of myself. And then I was reading a book called Compound Effect. I don't know if you've heard it. It was a phenomenal book, right?
Yeah.
And he was talking about how his father influenced him so much. It's the small, smart decisions done consistently over time that create radical change. That's like the main lesson behind that book. And he spoke about how we only have such a small period of time with our kids. And he said, we need to capitalize on it. And he gave ideas of how his father helped him live the life of a CEO, an executive at a super young age. And as soon as I heard that at Bare Fit, I immediately went home. It was like 6:15 in the morning. I woke my kids up and they got up grudgingly. And I say, get up, we're doing a workout. And that day, everything changed for our morning routine. And so every single morning I get up before 5 o'clock to do a workout. And then between 5 and 6 o'clock, I wake my sons up and we do a workout. And then after that, we sing a song together as a family. This is not just like me and a couple boys. Our whole family sings a song together. We say a prayer together, and we do scriptures. We read a chapter in the Book of Mormon together. And then I take a little bit of time of training my sons on principles. This morning, my lesson was on how do we hear, feel, and be guided by the Holy Spirit. So that's like my opportunity to lead my sons and build them up, right? And then I go get ready for work and go to work. And then I keep you see this, I love this statue. So like spiritual, people know it. Like this is who what we focus on, and not everyone's Christian here, but like it's something that I talk about a lot. So I try to keep reminders around me on a daily basis. But like my starting point is that morning routine with my boys. It's gone from all my focus being on myself to my wife and my boys, and so hopefully they're learning something through that process. Hopefully
that's a cool shift. Yeah.
Relationship.
I love it, man. I love that. I love that change. That's very cool. And I love how it just incorporated everybody into that same, right? Here's the 5 or the 6 core things, and we're going to do these 6 core things together. Right. And that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. I think if people are wondering right now what this is about, Tyler, a couple years ago, it was like, we need to get together with people that have it figured out so they can help us figure it out.
Yeah.
That last 5 minutes, little bit is exactly what this is about, right?
Yeah.
What hacks are happening in the lives of people that we admire, and can we lift up the hood and see what that looks like, and then go make it happen, go make those things happen in our lives, right? I would agree. I think, Lester, that is phenomenal parenting, and happy early Father's Day, right? I think that you're doing some cool things, and the world's going to need that rising generation, right? I think that there's a reason why you're having the promptings that you're having and doing for all of us, the investment that we are putting into kids there will be a return, and the return could actually have profound community effect. You mentioned your patriarchal blessing. I've been touched by the words of my kids' patriarchal blessings in what they're going to be able to do with the gospel of Jesus Christ in a world that you can only imagine what that's going to look like, right? The world that they're going to be raising kids in, they need this foundation. They need this first row. They need that intentionality of like, I'm going to pour into you every morning, boys. Get ready.
Yeah,
I just love it. 11-year-old, that's remarkable. If you can do all that for a 14-year-old, you get a 14-year-old boy up at 5. Now you're moving the earth.
That's right, man. That's right. Lester, it's crazy. We've been at this for a couple hours, right? Which is crazy. And you're in Chicago, man. You're burning the midnight oil.
I gotta wake up at 4 a.m.
You gotta wake up at 4 a.m. So we appreciate you, and you know, one of the things that we hope through this project, this podcast, is that, and it's not a hope anymore, right? Because Mike and I have seen this bear out over and over again, that people are going to listen to your words and be inspired to make some changes. And I'm grateful for your time and your willingness to come on and jump on on short notice with us. But Lester, we end every podcast that we do with the same question for everyone, and we pose that question to you as well. What does it mean to you to be considered the richest man in town?
Back when I was running GCE, it would have been 100% financial. Financial is 100% last on my list now. Like, it is not my pursuit anymore, because I know that if I focus on the other areas of my life, Heavenly Father being the first, that comes. So it's not about having all the money in the world. It's not about the possessions. For me, it's making sure that my relationship with God is right. I'm focused on areas of mental, emotional, relational. So my relationship with my wife, my kids, people I'm surrounded with, my community, my church. Physically, I'm working out every single day. And then obviously financial, that comes last. And it's this pursuit of me becoming the best version of myself. And right now, like I'm telling you, a huge focus is on my boys and just helping them to become the best version. I'm obsessed with it. I'm passionate about it. And to me becoming the best version of myself and helping my family do the exact same, to me, I would feel like I was the richest man in town.
I love that answer, man. Well, I tell you what, 2 hours in, I feel I'm better for it. I appreciate you, Lester. It's great to see you. I'm just grateful for the life that you're living. I'm grateful for the things that you've gone through to be able to teach these lessons today. I really am. And I appreciate you sharing those things. It's been a blast, man.
Tyler, thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Hey, on the way out, we started with Alma. We'll end with Alma. I just think of that Alma at the end of chapter 32. I think it's verse 42. By and by, you shall pluck the fruit thereof, right? And I think that there's just something about you do the work, and by, you're going to reach up and you're going to see there's some pretty amazing fruit. And I can feel it, right? I've never met you in person. I can feel the fruitfulness of your life, and I wish you nothing but success. But success at home beats it all, right? And I think that that's I'm taking away pages of some notes here, but Amen. I really do appreciate how you've got your eyes on those boys, because you got your hands full. You and Jane both. But
yeah,
I appreciate you taking the time to honor those people that have made a difference along the way, right? And to anyone and everyone, we all have the ability, with a few words, with a little bit of show up in other people's lives, we can be that hinge, right? We can create those moments of impact, and we can do those things that have been done to us that have made all the difference. And so I'm gonna definitely be having a lot of Lester bouncing around in my head. So I want to thank you for the things that you've shared tonight.
Thank you.
Short notice, man.
You guys are powerful. This is gonna be fun to listen to your podcast, Tyler. I'm gonna be probably texting you and telling you the things that I love about the shows. You know, I love it. I'm gonna be listening to it. I appreciate you guys. Like, for real. Like, regardless, hopefully there's something that came of value. Absolutely, this has been probably more valuable for me because it's hard to connect with that story because you try to just like, it's so difficult. There's so much pain in it that I just want to focus on where I'm going instead of the past. But like you said, like, there's a lot of power in reconnecting and remembering where I came from, you know? So I appreciate you so much for giving me the opportunity to do this.
Well, thanks for taking us there.
It's been awesome, man. Hey, Lester, have a good night. Tell Jane thanks for letting us borrow you for a couple hours.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother, George, the richest man in town.